Welcome back to this channel. In our tutorial today, we'll be going through ways in which you can apply styling effects to your web page or to your plain HTML code. So styling effects are done using the CSS language. So we'll go through this video and check what is CSS, what is the basic syntax for CSS, ways of loading our CSS into HTML and other elements. So stay tuned. So let's check what is CSS. CSS is a styling language used for modifying the web page. It is used for presentation and designing the web page contents. So CSS is different from HTML in that HTML is only used to put content to our web page, while CSS is the one used to decorate the content. Checking on the basic syntax for CSS, the CSS has three major parts for its syntax. So the three major parts, we have the selector, which is the element in which the style is to be applied to, and the part in the parentheses here, all of it is called the declarator, which is made of two parts, which are the property and the value. So let me show you how this one looks like in a code. So I'll write a basic HTML code here. Let's say here we have a h1 element, let's say my web page. So this one here is the selector. h1 element is the selector. So applying style, change the color to red. So save the file and refresh the page, and you can see it has changed to red. So this is the selector and these are the declarator. So this is the property, which is the color, and the property value is the effect applied to the property, which is red. You can see it changes this content. The next thing we are going to look at is possible ways of loading your CSS to HTML file. So there are three possible ways of doing that, and the first one is using Inline CSS. So to use Inline CSS, you need to create a CSS code inside the HTML element, which is this one we have done here, this one here. So you can see this is the Inline CSS, but it comes with several disadvantages in that the style only applies to the specific element and you cannot reuse the style or inherit this style. Another thing, it makes your code not that readable, and it might slow down your page depending on the type of style you're applying to your page. The second step is by using the styling element. So the styling element is always added into the header, into the head of the element, and it uses the same CSS syntax. So to do that, come to the head and open the style. Then in the style, you declare the element that you want to apply changes to and the change that you want to do. So let's create this h2 and see the changes that it will bring. Save the file and refresh, and you can see it is changing to blue. This is one way of loading your CSS into HTML, though I mostly don't encourage it because of the several disadvantages that it has as well, which includes that you cannot reshare this code, and editing or identifying errors might be a problem as well. So the third way of doing that is by using external CSS. To use external CSS, you first need to create a CSS file. So to do that, we'll come here and open new file. This file, we'll save it as styles.css and then save. So we want to link this external CSS file to our HTML file. You come to the head of the HTML and then type in link, and in here you enter the name of your CSS file. So our file was, it is styles with .css, and then save your file. By doing this, you would have directly linked your CSS file to HTML. So let's test if it works. Let's apply a change to this H3 element. Save your file and then refresh it on the browser, and you can see the changes applied. So this is the best style to use when styling your page, because when you have an external file, you can link it to several HTML files and apply changes using that single file instead of having to code on each element when using this inline style or the styling element in HTML. The next thing we are going to look at is the types of selectors on CSS. And there are three ways in which you can select your elements in CSS. The first one is by using the element itself. The second one is by using the class, and the third one is by using the ID. So these are the three ways in which you can select your element in CSS. So let me show it on bigger screen. So these are the three ways in which you can do selection on CSS. So the first one is by using the element, the second method is by class, and the third method is by ID. So the first method here it is, so this is the element in which you want to apply the changes to. This H3 here is the element. So this is the element method when applying changes to your file using CSS. The second method is the class method, in which you can come to this H3 element here and create a class. So let's call this class head3 and save. To apply changes to head3, you come to a CSS file. When apply changes to a class, you first begin by putting a full stop at the start of your code, then paste in the name of your class. Copying and pasting is the best way because you cannot confuse on spelling. Paste, put in parentheses and choose the change that you want to apply here. Let's say I want to change the color to yellow. Then save your file and refresh, and you can see the color of H3 element is changing to yellow. I know you might be wondering, why is this? Is it that the H3 element, it is green at the top, and again when I'm applying the change using the class, it changes to yellow. So CSS selects the changes that have been applied latest, and also it depends with the weight of the selector that you are using. So the class selector is more weighted compared to the element selector, so CSS will always pick the class selector. So the third method is by using the ID. So to use the ID, we have to create an ID here. Let's name it head2. Save the file, come to CSS. Now to apply changes to ID, you start your code by putting the hashtag symbol here, and then copy the name of your id, copy, and then paste, and pick on changes that you want to do. Let's change the color to pink and save. When you refresh, you can see the color of our H3 changes to pink. So CSS picks on the value, the selector that is more weighted and latest. So if you style your element using the ID, it will always pick the ID because it is of more weight compared to the class. So we've been changing colors using these default words like yellow, pink, green. You might be wanting to change a color to a specific value. For example, you want blue but not this normal blue color here. So to do that, there are other methods in which you can change your colors in CSS. So let me add an element here. Let me call this one H4, and let me say my style sheet. Save the file, then refresh. So you can see here is our H4 element. Let me do away with this one. You can see here is our H4 element. So let me assume that we want to do a change to this H4 element. You want maybe a red color but not this red, or any other color apart from the primary colors. So there are ways of doing that. So the first way is by using the H4, is by using this red, green, blue element, RGB, color RGB. So this one gives some margin of this color, like the red one up to 255, the green one up to 255, and the blue one. So let me say you want to apply red, maybe 24. You want small green and most of blue. Let me say 56. Save, refresh, and you can see the color that is creating here is a bit different. Let me increase the font size. So you can see this color here is very different. Let us increase this green to 89. Save and refresh, and you can see the color is changing. So what if we increase the blue to 70? File, save, and you can see this color is different. So this one helps you put specific colors apart from the default primary colors that we know. The other method is color. So you can see this method is made up of 4 elements. The last one allows you to apply either transparent or an untransparent element. It displays the transparency level that you want to be applied on your element that you are changing. So let me do away with this first. File, save, refresh, and on this last element, when you put it to 0, you can see our H4 here is clearly transparent and nothing is being shown. And when you set it to 1, the H1 element is opaque and can be seen. So you can make changes depending on how much you want to be displayed in this element. Another means of adding colors is by using the hexadecimal. So the hexadecimal, you put this hashtag symbol at the top, and then you put in the color codes. So the hexadecimals operates in that it uses decimal numbers from 0 to 9 and letters from 10 to 15 because it runs from 0 to 15. So 10 is represented using A, 11 is by B, up to F, which is the 15th one. So it is made up of 6 letters here. So the first ones here always represent the red color, the middle ones represent the green color, and the last ones represent the blue color. So these are the possible ways in which you can apply a specific coloring element to your CSS file or HTML files. The next thing we are going to look at are the measurement units which are present. On the measurement units in CSS, there are several measurement units, which some are absolute and others are relative. The absolute measurement units are measurement units that are rigid and cannot adjust themselves depending on the screen size of the display of a device that is used to view your web page. So some of these absolute measurement units are the centimeter, pixels, and millimeters. And there are relative elements which flexes adjust themselves according to either the display size of the unit or the display according to the parent tag. Some of these include the EM, REM, and the percentage. So for pixel like this one, the font size is set to 56. This font size here cannot change even if we change the screen size of this display here. The font size remains the same. But if you are using percent, for example, let's say you put this font size to 10%. This font size will first check the size of your display, and when displaying, it will display 10% of that size. So it adjusts depending on the display size. And the last one is the REM, which scales off the font size of the root element. For example, here, let's say the font size of, we have a set font size for this body element, and you make changes to this one. So these changes that you make to H3 won't be affected because it will reference to this parent or root element. So the major thing in CSS that we are going to check again is the CSS box element. So to do that, let us create a div. Say class. This class, let's call it class box. Save the file. So you can come to class, to your CSS file, put a full stop, name of the class, and then the changes that you want to apply to this class element. So the first one is height, which will use 30 pixels. The second one is width. This width will be 50 pixels. Let us change the height to 50 as well for it to be clear. The next one is padding. Let padding be 10 pixels. And the last one is border. So we want our border to be visible. So the border will be 10 pixels. It will be a solid border and blue in color. So save the file and refresh, and you can see here is our blue border here. The height is 50, the width also. Let me add some color in background. Let me say color. Let me say background to green. File, save, refresh. So you can see the background here is green. So let me go to inspection to explain for you this part in a better way. To check on inspection of the page, you right click on your mouse and inspect. So this is the aspect ratio of this border box element here. So this part here is our content that is displayed. You can see this is the content, and the padding, this padding here, is the space in between the content and the border. So here's the border, here's the padding, and this is the margin of the page. There's another thing that I forgot in the selection, in how to create a selector. There's this selector that is used to when you want to make a change to the whole page. For example, you want to make a change to this whole page here, this HTML page. To do that, you put in the star. It's called asterisk to some people. Let's say you want the margin to be 0 and the padding to be 0. Save the file and refresh, and you can see our margin is gone and even the padding is gone. So this one is used to add styling to your whole HTML page if you want the style to be default to the whole page. And you can also change it using classes. I know we've not covered most of this, but in our other videos, when we'll be creating some of the real example of web pages, we'll cover most of these parts. So stay tuned and follow our next videos to learn more. Thank you for our new viewers, and also thank you for our returning viewers. To our new viewers, kindly subscribe and press on the notification button. Also, don't forget to leave a comment on what you think, what you might want to add, or a question. Thank you so much for watching.